Somebody thought having a title was enough to take down the person who built the foundation. Stick around, this one earns it. New here? Subscribe, it's one tap. They thought they were being clever, but I've been in too many boardrooms, too many back offices, too many ugly cleanup jobs to mistake posturing for real power. It was a Tuesday, late September. Cool enough for a jacket, warm enough for the coffee I carried to fog the glass on the front door of Whitcomb Fine Arts Group's Midtown office. First day back on paper as an officer, not that it mattered. I hadn't stopped running half the place even when my name disappeared from the chart. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from, and let's continue. Juno Price looked up from reception, gave me a split-second glance that said she already knew. Not the details, just the smell of it. Like a barometer reading, Briar Whitcomb didn't even pretend. She sat in the glass box off the lobby like she owned the oxygen, company laptop still blinking through setup prompts like it hadn't decided if she belonged. She didn't stand, didn't nod, just picked up a sheet of paper and started reading it like a teenager doing a morning announcement in high school. Tamsin Kerr from HR stood behind her, folder in a death grip. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately," Briar said, like she was reciting someone else's words, which she was. "Security will escort you out." No reasons, no performance notes, no "thank you for your service," not even the decency of corporate boilerplate, just a printed script and a rookie trying to sound executive. Wes Denning, from security, was already standing by the door, calm, professional, hands clasped. I looked at him, then at Briar. I didn't give them the show. Just set my coffee down, pulled the badge from my jacket pocket, placed it gently on the table and said, "You should let Harlan know the board's going to have something to talk about in 2 hours and 47 minutes. Briar blinked like she couldn't do the math, smirked like she thought I was bluffing. Tamsin flinched. Wes stepped forward, not aggressive, not slow, just doing what he was told. As we passed the front desk, Juno's eyes didn't move from the glass wall where Briar sat. Her look said what I didn't. Someone just lit a match, and she didn't even know she was standing in fumes. I didn't go home. I went to a diner 2 blocks over, got a booth facing the door, ordered black coffee. Then I texted Colson Reeve, called Lyle Benton, said one thing. "Clause 17C is live. Use the red folder." Lyle didn't ask questions, just said, "Understood," like he'd been waiting. The thing about this industry, what people call the auction world, is they only see the theater. Paddle numbers, champagne receptions, catalog photos with soft lighting. What they don't see are the contracts written in lawyer blood, or the whispers that decide who gets access and who gets buried. When I stepped in years ago, Whitcomb wasn't polished. Harlan was charismatic, sure, and he could close a sale like a magician pulling a rabbit out of an empty box. But he was careless. He didn't read fine print. He gambled on timelines and hoped the art showed up insured. What he needed was someone to tighten the screws behind the scenes, someone who didn't care about the parties, just the math. That was me. I didn't ask for a title, never cared about it. I asked for leverage. Every time I pulled the company out of a tailspin, when we lost a Monet in transit, or when a Singapore investor threatened litigation over false provenance, I didn't take a bonus. I took shares. Silent, structured, layered in holding companies designed to look like noise. By the time most people in the company learned my name, I already held 68.02% of the voting stock. Not on paper anyone would bother reading. Not through press releases or press conferences. Just filings that passed through Lyle's desk and into the system like drops in a reservoir. I got that control by doing what no one else had the stomach for. I bought out the panic. A partner going through a brutal divorce needed fast cash and discretion. I offered both. A distant cousin of Harlan's wanted out after 2 bad auction seasons and a failed gallery play. I didn't haggle, I just closed. None of them remembered the fine print by the time they signed. They just wanted the problem gone. I didn't exploit them. They brought the offers to me. I just didn't flinch. Orrin Halstead, the lead investor everybody called paranoid, was the one who gave me the room to build the protections. He'd been burned before, and he was terrified of what would happen if a relative with a chip on their shoulder ended up with a power pen. He didn't want promises. He wanted structural traps. That's where Clause 17C came from. It was plain and brutal. If someone with no equity, like a family member dropped into a job, fired a corporate officer without a board vote, Then their authority vanished. Gone. Board must meet. No reverse gear, no let's discuss. Just a hard wall. Harlan signed it. So did Orrin. So did every external investor who wanted legal guardrails instead of family chaos. And once it was in, they all forgot about it. I didn't. I never forget my safety nets. The trust piece? That was the part even Harlan missed. Back when he was trying to impress the old money crowd, he built a Whitcomb family trust. Looked like a nice legacy move, clean and noble. He wanted optics, not oversight. So I helped him draft it. What he didn't think about was who had the controlling key to that trust. I made sure I did. Paperwork, signed authority, and a voting clause buried in Section 8. He thought he was building a monument. What he built was a lever, and I held it. I opened the folder before the waitress even brought the water. No laptop, no keyboard, just paper. Everything in that packet was there for a reason. Orrin had made sure of it when we built it years ago, back when what if one of the kids gets power still felt like a far-off maybe. First page, my officer designation, signed and dated, clean and current. Second, a copy of the memo Breyer read, her signature on the bottom. Third, Clause 17C in full language highlighted. Then, timestamps, email headers, filing trails, distribution instructions, the whole ignition sequence. I sent it in silence. Not a flurry, not a blast. One by one, straight from my phone, from scanned originals. General counsel, corporate secretary, outside counsel, board chair, all directors, registry oversight. No fluff, no commentary, just receipts. This wasn't for the press. This was structural. Quiet power, triggered. Coulson replied first. Don't come back to the building yet. Then, after a beat, she did it in writing? She read it to my face, then signed the memo. His reply came back like a verdict. All right, then it's clean. Next was Lyle. He didn't reply at all, just called. His voice was steady, like it always is when something big's moving. What do you want activated first? Start with the registrar lock, then cap table view for board only. Pre-stage the 2 reversal resolutions, and flag escrow restrictions in case she tries to move cash. Understood, he said. Then he hung up. Lyle's not dramatic. He treats the corporate registry like scripture. If his hand moves, the building shifts. By 9:30, Sterling Moffat had the sealed packet on his desk. So did every board director. Orrin, too. Coulson sent confirmation from legal that outside counsel had received and logged the trigger. I didn't have to knock on doors. The packet did that for me. It carried weight not because of how loud it was, but because of what it forced. You don't ignore it. You deal with it. Then I sent one more text to Wes Denning. Short and to the point. Would appreciate a copy of your incident log for this morning, when ready. He replied 20 minutes later. Writing it now will deliver clean. That's Wes. Quiet, precise. He doesn't like being a pawn. He likes clear lines followed by clear results. Later he told me, I wrote it exactly as it happened, sir. No edits. That report wasn't flash, but it mattered, because facts on paper don't spin. They just sit there, sharp. Breyer thought the badge was power, that walking me out meant I'd been removed. But what she didn't understand was simple. Titles don't move buildings. Documents do. And mine were already doing exactly what they were built to do. Pull the board out of hiding and into a meeting. Not by request, by requirement. I sat in that booth long enough to see the sun shift angles across the floor tile. I paid the check, stood up, and walked toward the street. I wasn't going to the office. I was going to war. By the time I left the diner, Breyer was already making her move. Tamsin called me from a back stairwell during her break, voice barely above a whisper. She walked in like she was 6 feet taller, she said, took your office, asked if facilities could make it less dark. That's what she called it, less dark. I could picture it exactly. Breyer opening the blinds, pretending the sunlight meant power. That same hour, Merritt forwarded me a screenshot from our internal system. Not a formal action, just Breyer's first list of preferences. Freeze my wire sign-offs, pause my approval on consignments, reroute contracts through her new strategy group. At the bottom, she'd added a little smiley face. That was the part Merritt couldn't stomach. He added one line under the screenshot. She doesn't understand what she's touching. She didn't, not even close. Next came Lyle. She'd gone to him too, told him to update the cap table and make sure the new structure is reflected clearly for her team. Lyle told me later he nodded, typed a few notes, and never pressed a single button, because when 17C gets triggered, the system locks. You don't get to reorganize the registry just because you've got a nice outfit and a new laptop. That's when Coulson brought me the twist. He texted me 2 words, check email. I opened it and saw the screenshots. Perry Whitcomb, Breyer's husband, had been texting a board member I'd known for 20 years. The messages were cautious, but the intent was clear. If Galen panics, we can buy him out clean. Keep it in the family. Perry was never loud. He never had to be. He planted seeds and let Breyer carry the water. At the same time, Oren messaged me 2 more screenshots. Art World Loop, an industry gossip account with just enough traction to get reposted, had suddenly dropped exclusive tips about me, called me a shadow stakeholder, said I'd intimidated younger executives, and blocked modernization. That kind of trash doesn't leak on its own. Someone paid for it. Someone aimed it. I didn't reply with insults. I didn't call a lawyer. I just sent Oren a 6-word email. Check your inbox for timestamps. Because months ago, I wrote a clean investor memo for exactly this kind of stunt. It was neutral, it was calm, and it was already sitting in Coulson's outbound queue, waiting for the trigger. I didn't see myself as a hero. I was the system's fire extinguisher, ugly, metal, mounted to the wall, and finally pulled. While Breyer played at leadership and Perry whispered behind closed doors, the board was already getting notifications. The real ones. Signed, filed, stamped. And Coulson, he wasn't watching a surprise unfold. He was watching a pre-built process do exactly what it was designed to do. By noon, I had every piece moving. But I didn't gloat. I just called Lyle. Time to deliver the binders, I said. Lyle's reply was short. Already on their desks. Sterling Moffat didn't waste time sugarcoating it. He called me after the binders landed and said, "The room just froze, Galen. Cold. No one's pretending this is some leadership tiff anymore." I knew that tone. It wasn't panic. It was awareness. When directors feel threatened, they don't shout. They don't bluff. They pick up the phone and dial people with bar numbers and $600 hourly rates. Outside counsel was looped in right away. Coulson sat across from them in a temporary boardroom, watched them read Clause 17C start to finish. He said later the lead attorney didn't speak for 10 seconds. Then finally, "This is mandatory. Today." That's what everyone misses. 17C doesn't open a discussion. It pulls a fire alarm. It overrides. It activates. Sterling had his assistants smashing the calendar like glass, calls canceled, flights delayed, anything to get full attendance that same afternoon. And Harlan? He was out at his country club, 3rd round of golf this week, probably thinking the company would orbit around his tea time. Merritt tried him first. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. Coulson didn't bother playing polite. He used his personal line. Harlan finally picked up, clearly annoyed. But that changed fast. Coulson walked him through the facts, one by one. Breyer's lack of equity, the officer termination, the clause being triggered the moment she signed the memo. Merritt told me Harlan left his golf bag on the cart and drove off the course without saying goodbye. By early afternoon, they were all in the building. I wasn't. I was watching it move from the outside, the way a builder watches a dam hold back a flood. Inside the conference room, Coulson laid it out for Harlan face to face. She didn't have the authority to terminate him, he said. She had no equity, no board vote. That means her role is suspended, effective the moment she read the memo aloud. Harlan tried the classic maneuver, half apology, half reversal. "We'll just undo it, refile the paperwork, smooth this out." Coulson didn't blink. There is no reverse. The trigger was filed before she finished reading. It's already binding. You signed it yourself. Then came the part I knew would hit Harlan like a hammer. The trust. Coulson didn't dress it up. He told him straight. Part of the controlling stake was nested inside the family trust Harlan himself set up, and I held the decision authority in crisis clauses. Harlan didn't argue that point. He just sat there taking it in. Years of trying to look legacy safe for investors had turned into a noose he'd tied himself. Meanwhile, Oren was doing what he does best, applying pressure. Sterling showed me one of his messages later. It said, "You will treat this as fiduciary duty, not family therapy." That line bounced around the room like a ricochet, because they all got it. This wasn't about pride or preference. This was survival. Breyer's move had put contracts at risk. Escrow could be challenged. Guarantees could be voided. Insurance riders don't hold when authority is in dispute. And the board? They were finally staring at their own names on the line. Not Breyer's, not Harlan's, theirs. That changes things fast. Sterling didn't even wait for a full agenda. He said, "We meet this afternoon. Everyone. No exceptions." The directors didn't protest. They just started clearing their schedules. I walked back into the building like I never left it. My name wasn't on the wall, but I didn't need a nameplate to make gravity shift. Juno at reception didn't smile, but she gave me a single nod. The kind that says, "I see what's happening." That's more than enough. Wes was by the elevator bank. No escort this time. He just held the door open with one hand, like he knew I didn't need directions anymore. Upstairs, the boardroom was already full. Quiet. Too quiet. No one was pouring coffee. No folders were being shuffled. Sterling sat at the head of the table with both hands flat on the wood, elbows out. Coulson had his binder open, and Merritt's looked like it had gone through 3 highlighters and a red pen. Perry was off to the right, alone in a side chair. Eyes down, lips pressed. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't making notes. He was just waiting. Then came Breyer. Late. Confident. She walked in like nothing touched her. Heels sharp, blouse ironed, eyes forward. She made a straight line for the head seat, like the script was still running in her head. Sterling didn't stand. He didn't even raise his voice. "You may observe," he said, "but that seat is reserved." Breyer paused mid-step, like someone had changed the shape of the room. Coulson slid a packet toward her across the table. His voice was clean, almost bored. "Your appointment is suspended pending shareholder review." She blinked twice. "This is a misunderstanding. I was acting in the company's interest. There was urgency." Coulson didn't argue. He just opened his folder and started reading. Straight from the clause. Every word clean, legal, and final. Merritt followed, flipping a tabbed page. "We have potential exposure on at least 4 fronts. Escrow, insurance riders, consignor agreements, and third-party appraisals. Anything she touched since this morning is now vulnerable." That's when I saw the shift. The fight left Breyer's face like air leaving a balloon. I didn't perform. I took my seat, adjusted the mic, and spoke one sentence. "Motion to rescind all executive actions and appointments made since this morning, and to restore interim operational authority to the majority holder until the shareholder vote is complete." Sterling didn't invite commentary. He looked left, looked right, and asked for votes. Hands went up. A few slower than others, but they all rose. Numbers don't lie when you hold 68.02%. Coulson logged the vote. Merritt made a note. Lyle read the tally out loud. That was it. Motion carried. Breyer sat where she was, now officially an observer in a meeting she thought she'd be leading. Her body didn't move, but her jaw did, tight, like she was grinding down something she couldn't swallow. Perry didn't defend her. He didn't speak, just stared at his own wedding band like it might offer answers. Looking at him, I didn't see shock. I saw calculation that went sideways. He wasn't a man caught off guard. He was a man whose plan had failed, and he didn't have a backup. I closed my binder. The vote was done. The position was gone. She hadn't just lost her seat. She'd lost the illusion that she was ever holding the reins. When the vote wrapped, Sterling didn't say a word. He just stood up, and people started clearing the room like muscle memory. That's old chairman skill. You don't direct, you shift the atmosphere. Harlan didn't follow the others out. He turned to me and said, "You got a minute?" I didn't nod. I just followed him into the small side room off the boardroom. Same furniture it's had for 20 years. Round table, low lighting, fake plants in the corner. He moved slower than usual, shoulders tight. I noticed the tremor in his left hand when he rested it on the chair back. That's when I knew he wasn't playing this off. He sat first. I waited until he did, letting him know without words, we're not peers today. "We can fix this quietly," he said. That was always his move. Duct tape and charm. Paint over the cracks and call it vintage. I opened my briefcase and slid 2 folders across the table. Option 1, I said, you buy me out. 9.25 times current valuation. Half cash, half notes. Structured, enforceable, non-negotiable. His eyes flicked to the folder but didn't touch it. Option 2, I said, we restructure. I stay majority, governance goes public. No more family pipelines. No more interim sweetheart roles. Everything with teeth. He looked tired. This isn't necessary. We're family. You used that word when it benefited you, I said. Now it's a liability. He leaned back. You're pushing too fast. You already used your time, I said. This should have been stopped before Briar ever opened her mouth. He looked at me, then the folders. Is this revenge? I didn't flinch. No, this is maintenance. Your daughter-in-law tried to drive $1 billion consignment pipeline like it was a wedding registry. This isn't about her anymore. It's about the system she almost broke. He didn't respond, just sat with it. Then I laid the third piece on the table, literally. A printout of the leaked gossip thread, stamped and time-noted. I haven't accused you, I said, yet, but I know the leak didn't sprout on its own, and if it gets louder, I've got pre-drafted disclosures going to every investor, every top consigner, and every institutional partner we've worked with in the last 3 years. His shoulders dropped half an inch. I had his attention now. I stood, let him feel the moment change. You've got 2 doors, Harlan, I said. You buy me out at my price, or we rebuild this company like adults with rules. Either way, your daughter-in-law is finished making decisions. He didn't argue, didn't defend. He just looked down at the table like he was finally seeing the paperwork he'd spent years stepping over. I left the room without another word. By the time I got home that night, the leak was already crawling through the industry like mold. Perry had aimed it well. Not loud enough to make headlines, but sharp enough to leave bruises. Art World Loop ran a short column quoting, "Sources familiar with internal dynamics." They said I was a shadow owner, called my exit ethics-related, and hinted at board-level concern over unbalanced influence. They never said what I'd actually done because there was nothing to say. That's how you know a story's planted. No fire, just smoke blown through a fan. Oren texted me early, just 4 words. Handle it. Fast. He didn't need to say more. I looped in Coulson and we did what grown-ups do. We didn't fight fire with fire. We sent a clean, neutral stabilization memo to every key investor and consignment partner. Not defensive, not aggressive, just the facts. Board meeting minutes, timestamps on the clause trigger, verified authority chain, and a 1-page summary of events in legal order. No adjectives, no narrative, just structure. Facts don't get sued when they're signed. While Coulson handled the outside, Merritt was dealing with something hotter. A major collector in Chicago, the one anchoring our fall auction with 9 figures in inventory, was already on the phone with legal. The moment he saw the word instability, he threatened to pull the collection unless we gave written assurance in 48 hours. Merritt texted me, "Can I loop you in?" I didn't even hesitate. I called the collector myself. No fluff, no sales tone. I told him, the board is in control. I'm in control. The noise is not the system. He stayed. Inside the building, it felt like everyone was watching the same movie without knowing the ending. Juno told me later the lobby was quiet in a way she'd never heard, like the air itself was bracing. Tamsin said the HR floor was full of whispers. No one had ever seen an executive be elevated and removed in the same week. She said, "It's like people are waiting for the next head to roll." Wes told me security got 2 separate requests from Briar, both asking to retrieve materials from my office. She didn't specify what, just vague wording and urgency. Wes refused both. He told her, "We act on board instruction, not executive suggestion," and wrote it down for the log. Lyle was already moving. He locked down signature pathways, not digital gimmicks, but actual authority blocks. Consignment guarantees now required 2 approvals. Wire transfers couldn't clear without board countersign. Vendor contracts hit a review queue before moving forward. People called it red tape. I called it fireproofing. And still, Briar tried to fix her image. Coulson showed me a memo draft she submitted to Sterling, a full-page note about a new era of executive alignment, and respectful transitions. It was corporate wallpaper. Sterling didn't even respond. He just blocked the send. That silence did more damage than any public takedown. Because inside Wickham, nothing travels faster than the sound of someone losing access and pretending it's strategic. Merritt found it by accident, which is always how the real things get caught. Not some dramatic sting, just a finance manager doing his job. He was reviewing standard outgoing wire requests, small vendor payments, courier bills, archival services, when a new request came through for $74,800, labeled as brand stabilization. The payee was a boutique PR firm in Atlanta. The approver wasn't Breyer, it was Perry. Problem was, Perry wasn't supposed to have access to that level of approval. Not anymore. He was using an old clearance code from a project that had been shut down a year ago. Merritt sent it straight to Coulson. He didn't even ask first. Coulson called me after he reviewed it. His voice was tight. "You'll want to see the email logs." I met him at his office. He had already pulled the firm's vendor file, looked through every pre-approval, and traced it to Perry's inbox. It wasn't just one email. It was a chain going back weeks. Draft language, suggested phrasing, even headline tests. Perry had fed them everything. Called me unfit for modern governance. Pushed the shadow power angle. Framed me like I was the stubborn relic standing in the way of innovation. Breyer didn't look like the mastermind. She looked like a courier. That's when I realized Perry didn't keep quiet during the board meeting because he was nervous. He kept quiet because he knew exactly how exposed he was. Sterling didn't wait for ceremony. He called a short-notice board session that evening. No intro, no opening remarks, just questions. Perry tried to act confused, said maybe it was a mistake, said maybe the code hadn't been shut down correctly. Then someone on the call read a section of the PR firm's proposal, word for word, and matched it to a line from the leaked gossip piece. That's when Perry stopped speaking. Sterling said, "Effective immediately, special project status is revoked. Internal approvals withdrawn." Perry didn't argue. He just went pale. The next morning, Breyer asked for a meeting. Just me. No lawyers. No board. She didn't come to apologize. She came to negotiate. She said, "I didn't know what he was doing. I thought I was protecting the family. I thought it was strategic." I said, "You weren't protecting anything. You were being used." She didn't disagree. She just looked down at the table like maybe the wood grain would offer her a better answer. I handed her the only path she had left, severance with a non-disclosure, plus a 5-year ban from holding any executive or advisory title in any entity connected to our investor group. No drama, no headlines, just a locked door behind her. Coulson drafted it, she signed. That afternoon, Merritt forwarded me a resignation email from Harlan. 3 words in the body, for personal reasons. No meeting, no goodbyes, just a line of silence and a vanished nameplate. By the following morning, the building felt different, lighter, like someone had turned off a noise we didn't realize was humming under everything. No tension, no pretending, just motion. Sterling opened the transition meeting at 8:40 on the dot. No speeches, just business. A revised org chart, a short list of stabilization priorities, and a stack of decisions that needed signatures before the next auction cycle could open. He didn't ask for commentary. He asked for follow-through. Breyer showed up at 8:53. She wore flats. Juno noticed. She always does. That detail made its way to me before the meeting ended. Not to mock her, just to mark the shift. Her badge didn't work at the executive floor gate. Wes met her there, calm as ever. He didn't make it personal, just held out his hand and said, "Phone and badge, please." She gave them up without protest, like someone who finally realized the rules were real. Perry wasn't there. He'd been told directly not to attend. Coulson said Perry had sent one email asking if his family status gave him any protection. Sterling's reply was one line. "This is governance, not genealogy." That closed the door for good. Inside the meeting, Merritt outlined the core stabilization steps. Reassurance memos to key consignors, lockouts on legacy contract approval chains, and a full audit of vendor agreements from the last 60 days. Lyle walked us through a new registry structure. Nothing flashy, just clean authority layers. Boring is what you want in governance. I signed off on a restructure track that trimmed titles, clarified roles, and stripped out anything vague enough to be misused. I scheduled a public update for the investor group. Tight, factual, no chest thumping. Just a record of what changed and why it had to. I didn't smile when Breyer got walked out. I didn't gloat. I'm not wired for humiliation. What I appreciated was the silence, the sense that the performance phase was over. The company had finally stopped pretending. Harlan's name stayed on the glass. That was fine. His name wasn't the issue. His absence was the fix. Breyer's New Era memo never made it past draft status, and the clause they all laughed at for years, the one nobody thought would ever be used, ended up saving the company from itself. After the meeting, Juno stopped me at the front desk. "You want a new badge?" she asked. "Same access," I said. "Different plastic." As I turned to leave, I glanced at the photo wall behind her. Harlan in the center, family arranged like royalty around him. The image of control. And all I could think was how easy it is to confuse spotlight with ownership. You can fire an employee, but you can't fire the wiring that holds the place together. Hold up, real talk before you bounce. If someone in your life pulled a power move like that and tried to bury you with gossip, would you hit back with paperwork and control, or would you walk away and let it burn? If you've got the hype feature, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people, then please subscribe and like. It's one click and it matters a lot. And drop a comment with "good story" or tell me what you'd do.